our boundaries are meant to protect us, our emotional state, our physical state, our spiritual state. Now I'm sounding very much like the 4 pillars of wellness here. So, but yeah, Scott, back to you. I absolutely love that you set that boundary after you had taken the time to process what's going on for me. I need to protect myself. This is the boundary.
Yeah, it worked well. I kind of surprised myself because I'm still learning how to set boundaries, and I think
we all are.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will look at me and be like, "Oh, you're the counselor, you're the expert," and I'm like, "Hey, I might be the expert at teaching you. That does not necessarily mean I'm the expert at following my own counsel and advice." Mason.
Well, I think it depends a little bit on which relationship it is. Obviously you're going to tolerate a little more from a child than you would from, the woman in the line at the supermarket, right? So some of that just changes that. And some of it, I'm looking at your emotion thing over there, your feelings thing up there, and there's such anger is right there in the middle, but then there's 8 different feelings above that, and then 16 feelings above that. It's just, there's such a span of what we're feeling and what we need to manage. So for instance, even, like the affair, you might say, well, that's a showstopper for me. And so you step away from the relationship, and then you might later on down the road go, but that still really matters to me. What can I do about it? And you might choose to heal with that person over just walking away. Right. And you may not, but it's a hard stop for you in something has to change right now in this situation. Whereas other boundaries are not going to be like that. They're going to be, okay, let me check myself, right? Well, let me check. This is not how I want to get treated. What's going on here? What do I need to do now? And I think that they have to be that way. The boundaries are there to set up to protect ourselves from pain, from loss, from some of the things that are really hard in our lives. And so we have to, if we want the boundaries to really work well for us, they're really stopping points for us to re-examine where we are and go, oh, somebody crossed the line here. Where does that put me now? Not, what do I do with them? That's got to stop. Right. It's what do I do now? Where am I now with what just happened so that then I can figure out what to do next?
I love that. Thank you, Mason. So what happened? You set a boundary and then what?
Well, it worked. It was, it stopped that behavior. And it immediately improved our communication. Because she was able to, I was able to tell her how I wanted to be treated. Mm-hmm. And she responded with, okay, I understand that, and started communicating better.
That's wonderful. Well, and that's the whole purpose of having a boundary. It's, this feels uncomfortable or unsafe for me. In order for us to continue a relationship, I need. And if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm not saying you need to stop this and you need to stop this and you need to stop. That's those boundaries where I'm trying to control somebody else. Rather, when this happens, it makes me feel I don't like that. I need, and then we state that positive need. And remember, that positive need does not mean good or righteous. It means something the other person can do versus a negative need, which is something you're asking them to terminate. And we know from research that humans tend to respond better to positive needs. If I tell Mason, I feel very scared and vulnerable when I get yelled at by men, I need you to speak in a quieter voice, chances are he's going to respond to me better than if I say, stop yelling at me. It reminds me of my dad when you do that. I'm basically saying the same thing, but I'm framing it as I feel vulnerable. I feel scared. My dad used to yell at me. I shut down when people raise their voice at me. I need you to speak in softer, quieter, calmer tones when we're working through things. now it's I'm setting out what the Gottmans call a bid for empathy, but because I haven't attacked my husband or attacked the person I'm setting a boundary with, you're gonna I'm struggling with my words because you can't control the other person here. You're more likely to have the outcome that you're desiring. If I attack you, I'm most likely going to have more pushing against both people's boundaries. I'm going to push against their boundary. They're going to push against mine. Whereas if I establish a boundary based on my feelings, my experiences, and my needs, more often than not in healthy relationships, the other person is going to be able to say, oh, I'm sorry. I don't want you to shut down. I don't want you to be afraid of me. I don't want to remind you of your father. I know that that's a really ugly place for you. Absolutely. I can talk to you in quieter tones and not push that boundary. So I'm really glad that in this case, Pam was able to have a shift in the behavior.
Yes.
So
I love that term bid for empathy because that's so accurate. I mean, everybody can relate to feeling hurt or whatever, and
right.
When it gets communicated that way, it's not an attack, it's on the other person, and it doesn't escalate.
Shout out to Mexico and the Dominican Republic. Of our countries, the United States ranks number 1 in our listening population, which doesn't surprise me because we're coming out of the United States. But number 2 is Mexico, and number 3 is the Dominican Republic. We love y'all. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, this is Keith from Lewis Jewelers. It all starts with a ring. It's designed by you and handcrafted by us, right here in the great city of Ann Arbor. We look forward to celebrating your moments at Lewis Jewelers.